I'm Liz. First and foremost, many thanks to everybody for coming out to celebrate Debbie's life. I think that we were all touched in some form or manner, granted that we're all here. And she was such a beautiful, amazing friend to people in need. She never put herself first. She was very low-key, but a strong leader, like silently, right? She's behind the scenes and never ever scared to just say what she felt for the behavior of the animal, for the best interest of the animals, right? And again, my heart is so full. I'm sure everybody here to just have the space to be able to appreciate and respect her life and everything that she did to touch all of us. So thank you all for being here. I have a few people that were going to speak. I can start with Melanie. So there is a canine nose work competition today. So half of her nose work family is not here. But there is a trial that she would have been running back in. And I do have a quick note from one of her great friends, Melanie, and I'd love to share that. So Melanie was keeping it short and sweet because she couldn't write without crying, as I'm sure many of us feel. And she said, Debbie was such a great friend, the sort of friend we all should have. She was kind, compassionate, confident, and genuinely caring. Anytime I needed help with a dog event, Debbie was there, and she was usually the first one and always with donuts. She loved Krispy Kreme. Debbie always had a fun sense of humor, even in stressful times. I enjoyed making her laugh. Most often, it was so fun to hear her chuckle with occasional big out loud laughter, and her eyes would crinkle and her tummy would bounce, and her laughter is my strongest memory of her. So I'd like to open the floor. Judy, I don't know if you're comfortable with it. Yeah. Come up there. So whatever is most comfortable for you. And if you can give a little background on how you know Debbie.
A little scary.
Public speaking, right?
Get the whole gun. That's why we're here. So I first met Debbie a long time ago, probably as long as any of you in here, except maybe her sister and all. I met her in 1988 at Tony Thompson's dog training school. That's a long time ago. And it was totally by accident. I had a little German Shepherd that I decided needed dog training. And Debbie had a German Shepherd. It turned out we got there and they were cousins. And Luke, her boy, which most of you know about, was about 6 months older than Chance, who was my boy. And Chance's mom was Luke's aunt. And so that kind of got me started in the dog world. And up to that point, I'd only had, just pets. And so Debbie started asking me to tag along everywhere pretty much that I chose to go. And so we had lots of dog shows, tracking, anything that was going on around. Debbie always seemed to know about it. And she always was perfectly willing to drag me and Chance along, even though Chance was not always the best dog in the group. He was a little spoiled, but he loved Debbie, and he didn't mess with Debbie. And so later on, we kind of accidentally got into search and rescue, which some of you know Debbie from that. And our boys were like the two first to certify to be able to go on deployments of Florida Search Dog Association. And Chance worked until he couldn't anymore, and Luke did too, I think. And then Debbie kind of went on to do some other things, and I stuck it out a little bit longer. And we went to the dog shows. Luke was working on his championship, so it was kind of a community effort. And we were all really excited when Luke got his championship. Seemed like it took forever, but it was awesome when he got it. And I actually took some of these pictures of Luke and BS. I remember BS. He was just as sweet as this one is. So really, a little bit about search and rescue. We totally weren't expecting to get involved in search and rescue. We went out to a little seminar that was put on by the dog club we belonged to, and I don't think either one of us ever looked back, but we also didn't know what an impact it was going to have on our lives. And so Debbie actually helped bring 2 people home. She and Luke had a find of a little boy down in the Ocala National Forest. He was like 4 or 5 years old, and he had walked off with his Rottweiler. And when they found him, his Rottweiler was still with him, and he was fine. And then the other one she had was actually here in Gainesville, up off of Tower Road. A distraught lady had walked off into the woods, and luckily she was found in time to get her some help. And you know, there were not hundreds, but there were a lot of searches, a lot of training, a lot of seminars, and just lots of fun dog stuff. And you know, honestly, I don't know if I would have ever gotten into the dog community the way that I ended up without, you know, going with Debbie. I worked with her some at the veterinary conference, and was there when she built her new house. So we were together for a long time, and I had really nice memories of her. Wish we hadn't lost touch in the last few years, but I moved to Keystone, and she got off, and I got the golden retrievers, and they're not really good. But they're a lot easier to handle. And she hit one like him, who thinks he's a golden apparently. So anyway, you know, I know Debbie would be touched to know that so many people came out to, you know, to pay their respect and show their love for her. And that's all I got. Congratulations, Dr. Veterinary.
Well, I'm Dan Lewis, and I guess you could say I was Debbie's boss the last 30 years, but I prefer to say that I had the pleasure to work with Debbie for the past 30 years. And Debbie was probably one of the kindest person I've ever met. She really is somebody that she was always looking to help out. If anybody ever said anything around Debbie where there was a potential need for help, Debbie would always volunteer to help. And she really was selfless and would do whatever she could to help somebody, even if it was outside of her job description. She worked incredibly hard. She really did. So she was working full-time at the vet school, but for most of the time she worked there, she was also working full-time for NAVC and Dave Sr., who was her initial boss at the vet school. And Dave was in charge of the laboratory sessions at NAVC, and Debbie was in charge of coordinating all those labs. And that was the biggest veterinary conference. Many of you worked for Debbie at NAVC, and you know, it was no small operation. Chaotic as heck. The only time it would freeze in Orlando was always the day before NAVC, and all the little iguanas would die or chickens, and then she had to scramble to find, like, where do you find 10,000 chameleons in a 30-minute period of time or something? But she managed all that, she juggled all that, she worked really hard, and it was just, she was a very organized, a very intelligent person. For me, she helped me do everything. I'm kind of a technophobe, as Stan can fully attest to. And Debbie was like, she was the queen of the computer. She was made all these great illustrations and images for presentations and for publications. She ran our force plate. She was incredibly valuable to our whole section and making it highly successful. Debbie loved animals. She had her fair share of cats, goats.
Yeah, she did.
Pig, horses. She had this big giant draft horse, which I guess it was retired from Disney.
She had 3.
And the big one I remember, its name was Dan. I think it came with that name, but the joke was always that she's standing behind this big draft horse looking at its rear end, and she says, "Damn." But she loved her dogs. And I was trying to remember how many, in the 30 years I knew her, and I knew her before. I knew her when she started working at vet school back in the 80s when I was a resident. But in the 30 years she worked with me, I'm going to guess she had about 9 shepherds. And I was trying to name them all. 11. Probably the first 2 were pre-me. But, you know, and Luke was the one which was her all-time favorite.
I think depending on who you talk to, we all have things she has a different favorite. Depending on the need that you needed for one dog.
And so, you know, it's just, she had so many health issues, particularly the last 10 years. And, you know, she never complained. And it's just really sad that she's no longer with us. If anybody gets into heaven, it's Debbie. Amen. And she'll be sitting up there with all her dogs. But we'll miss her. I haven't even begun to think of life without Debbie at work. But it's really sad to go in the lab every day and she's not. Peace.
He spoke very highly of you. We heard a lot of good things.
I'm sure you heard a lot of bad.
I don't know if anybody else needs to share. I don't know how to do that. Is there anybody else that feels inspired or has some funny recollection or anything that you would like to share?
I do. So my name is Danielle, and I worked at vet school, and I started in 1990, and that's when Fluke, that's what she called him, right? I remember she came down, it was a little bit before I knew his name was actually Luke and not Fluke. So I actually I worked in radiology, for those of you who don't know me, and so I actually x-rayed all of her dogs at least once. At least once. Rats bit me once. Okay, no, rats bit me twice. No, 3 times. Pretty sure 3 times. And when I would tell her, she'd go, "God, Danielle, what were you doing to him?" For sedating him so we could do whatever orthopedic thing that we were radiographing. But her lab was a great place to go when no one knew where I was in radiology, because I would walk by there to go to radiologist's office, and I would just stop by, she'd be in there, and I'd stop. We'd talk about anything, everything. I x-rayed Dan as well, actually. I x-rayed his feet more than once.
The horse?
Since I don't work there anymore, I can't get arrested. I actually have radiographed that man. Something about a drill in your foot. But anyway, and one other time we won't talk about. Okay. And also, I worked VMX, as some of you know at VMX. You know, I would always walk in, she's like, "Danielle, can you do blah?" Even though I wasn't even doing whatever, I would say, "Heck yeah, I'd go do whatever she wanted me to do." And so we did different things. I did agility, but we would always talk agility. And trying to think of around 2000s, we lost our beloved dog. And one day, I'm walking out, coming across, and of course, he was the most awesome dog. Everyone, you know, the most awesome dog, of course. And she knew that I'd lost my dog. And I see her, I was going between buildings, and she's walking this little dog that looks like this. Some of you know this dog. I miss this dog to this day. I lost this dog during COVID, and I hated to tell her when I lost this dog, just because she is the reason why I had Fizzy, or Fizmerelda, or that dog. And it was a lot, and she walked out and she's walking this dog, and I took one look at this dog and I'm like, "What is that?" And she said, "I got this for you." And I said, no, you did not. And she's like, well, I mean, just look at her. I just, I thought of you when I saw her. Now, my other dog, we called him the Catahoula Shar-Pei Pit Bull because he was this little merle dog with a little curly over tail. He looked nothing like a terrier. I'd never had a terrier. I had greyhounds before that. She knew I had greyhounds. So I will always have a special place in my heart for Debbie because of Fizzy. Because this dog turned out to be the best dog ever. Yeah. Even though there's 2 dogs in my house right now who are the best dogs ever. But, and Debbie was always like, Danielle, you've done so much with Fizzy, it's great. See, I told you, she was wrong. But, so they both have a big special place in my heart. And I know that Fizzy is like, yep, see, in heaven as well with all those dogs. So so I went through Fluke, Ron, Rats, Bella, Eric's, Stevie! Oh my gosh, I forgot Stevie. Stevie did not bite me, so sometimes you don't remember them. But yeah, I forgot Stevie. Wow. So thank you. But yeah, so if I can leave you with anything, this is the reason why Debbie will always have a special place in my heart, is because it's Fizzy. Thanks, Mike.
Is there anybody else that feels?
I'll say something. Sure. Speaking of Debbie's sense of humor, she didn't like to, when we go to nose work trials and stuff, go on the highways. So we were at a thing in Jacksonville, and my cell phone kept on going out, and we decided I would follow her. And she didn't want to go on any of the interstates. She wanted to go the back ways. So in the dark, we saw the bowels of Jacksonville. I think we did the same curves and turns that started looking familiar. So we got to 301, and then I could find my way home. And we talked to each other and said, well, that was something. And she drove fast. She's always a good sport, and she's come to my house. Dr. Stanley Kim did surgery on my Catahoula, Trey, the biter, and she would send me pictures of him in recovery from we left, and come to the house, and he didn't like a lot of people, but he did like her.
So we have, thank you very much. Absolutely.
Yeah, so I worked at UF. I worked at UF for a long time, and in anesthesia. I don't know why you like me, but yeah. In anesthesia, and then I had this like wild idea that I thought, wouldn't it be cool to learn a lot more about police dogs and working dogs and what happens in the summer in Gainesville because of the heat stroke issues. And very naively, I kind of got Chris Cook involved, and I said, we're going to get a grant. And then I was like, we'll never get a grant. Then we got this grant, right, from Morris Animal Foundation to look at heat stroke in dogs. And I was like, I have no idea what I'm doing, right? And we were trying to figure out, could we work with the Gainesville Police Department and do stuff with their dogs? And every time we would arrange to go meet them, they would be like, yeah, we're going to go catch bad guys. Sorry, you can't come to the study. And Debbie kind of knew we were like, didn't really know what we're doing. And she came and she said, I think we can do this study. She said, we could use the shits. And I said, the shit what? what are those? And she's like, and you could almost, like, it was her, how she would treat everybody, like, clearly she was going, you don't know anything, but I'm going to help you. And so she trained me and taught me all about the different working dogs and what they did. And it turned out that I don't know if she asked or just volunteered all her friends and their dogs, but they would show up and we would do our study and we were taking blood samples and doing all sorts of stuff, and she made it happen and educated me, and she just never made me feel, which clearly at the start I knew nothing about what I was doing, but by the end I felt very comfortable, because these guys are a little scary when they show up, right? And the guy in the arm thing, right? And then the one thing she did to save me, I said, that looks really cool, being the guy in the arm thing. And she goes, I go, I want to try that. I want to be that. And she goes, no, I don't. And when we were looking at the data off the dogs' collars, when they hit those people and take them down, they're going at 30 miles an hour. And then they go to 0, right? Because everybody drops down. But we just had the craziest experiences with all the volunteers that came to help us, and we just never would have learned what we learned if it hadn't been for Debbie. And yeah, I really, really miss her.
Okay, hi everybody, I'm Kat. Debbie and I worked together for 10, 12 years. She's one of the first people that I met. She taught me how to get around a computer without breaking it, which she had to come and grab my hands a couple times because I probably would owe UF quite a few computers. Amazing woman. We talked about, I have been in exotics my whole life, and she was telling me about a Springbok study that they did, and about the greyhounds that they ran on the track. Just a wealth of knowledge. She was an amazing horsewoman, for those of you who don't know. If any of you have been to her house, she lives on this road that I swear is the Santa Fe Trail, because it has more, I can't even say potholes, craters in it. And first time, I only got to go out with her once, and I only chose to go out with her once on Dan. It was probably one of the last little buggy rides, cart rides that she did with him. I thought I was going to have to go to a chiropractor for the rest of my life. It was just miserable. But it was fun. She taught me a lot about dogs. When he was a puppy, I was trying to be all cool and everything and help her to start with his training and whatnot. And so I knew better than to, if he jumped or grabbed something, to reach down and try and smack him, you know? You want to lose a limb. So we were out in the parking lot in front of the vet school one day, and Beckham was having a great time. He was probably between 5 and 7 months old. And he decided he was going to take off my clothes out in the parking lot. He came pretty close while Debbie's standing there at the end of the leash laughing. Debbie, your dog is going to, this is not good, I'm going to go to jail. Anyways, we had a lot of laughs. I learned a lot. An amazing woman, and she's so dearly missed. Thank you.
Shelley Timmerman, and I'm going to try to get through this like everybody else. Debbie was the kindest person I've ever known, period. Flat out kind, generous, and all of those things. I worked with her with the lab dogs that she brought in for NABC, and I helped evaluate those dogs, because we made a point of getting all of those dogs home. If they could be placed, they got placed. Thank you. And one of those dogs just happened to be an Australian cattle dog, and I remember my report on him was, well, he knows how to bark, bite, and walk backwards. And that's about it. But he's going to need a very experienced home. Debbie and I had been Schutzhund buddies for a long time. If you don't know Schutzhund, that's the bite dog sport. So I said, you know, this is an interesting dog, and you know, all the other dogs seemed good, and then I get this phone call from Debbie. She's like, I just wanted to let you know that they're going to put Foghorn down. But no, she's like, he's bitten for people. And the last one was not happy about it. I said, I'll adopt him. I don't know why. Because I'm one of those kind of people. It's like so I got him. and I named him Jack, Jumpin' Jack Flash. He was 35 pounds of attitude. But I want you to know that I took that dog to a Schutzhund 3 level, which is as high as you can go in the sport. He is the only dog. I've got lots of purebreds. I've got lots of dogs bred to the sport that work, but he's the only one that I've taken all the way to the top. And he did it, and he did it, and I got to tell you that Debbie saved his life, and I can never thank her for that. My experience with her, we've spent hours together driving all over the state for our sport, and I don't know what else to say, but damn, I'm gonna miss her. Thank you, guys.
I just want to say one more thing. First of all, Liz, thanks for organizing this.
Yes, thank you.
And I think the only thing Debbie would really care about is that Beckham and Jinx have good homes. I think they both are in great places. Thank you.
For those of you wondering, I will be keeping Beckham.
Yay.
So he's going to stay local. I still anticipate working with UF research projects like the treadmill studies and stuff, the Chi Institute, where Debbie was a long-time volunteer. I would love to still do some obedience stuff with him. He's definitely going to continue to compete with nose work, so we'll still be around. He'll still be around. Jinx is with her neighbor Tommy, so I don't know if you guys have heard stories about Tommy, but it was a very serendipitous way that rehoming came about, because when I knocked on their door to ask if they were interested in adopting Jinx, her rat terrier that was a dog you wouldn't think Debbie would have for a multitude of reasons. They had already been discussing, it was their number one question, is what happened to Jinx, and the family had already discussed if they were going to adopt her, if that presented. So she's getting to live her farm dog, rat terrier life, literally next door to Debbie's. And if you guys, my favorite story is, we had hours to drive to dog stuff, and I always would, she just was so good at storytelling. And she would always come in, I was late for work because I was driving down the driveway, I couldn't find Jinx, and then I saw her wave to me while she was in Tommy's four-wheeler. Or I was late for work, or I had to leave work because Jinx decided to ride with the trash pickup guys. She just would do her own, she was just that dog is the epitome of the Huckleberry Finn of dogs. She has a really, really good, solid life, and I plan to visit with her later this week. The family has been very, very sweet and compassionate during this time as well. So Jinx has a great home as well, and they know that if anything comes up, I'll take her back. We'll rehome her as we need to, if that even becomes a thing. Debbie was also very well known for being extremely compassionate to all animals, and she often had treats in her pockets. And so there's a treat corner over there that I will strongly encourage you to take a handful, take a bunch, take as many or as few as you'd like, put some in bags and just either give them to your dogs in honor of Debbie, or you're walking down the street and you see somebody else, feel free to pass them out. Linda, thank you so much, and everybody who contributed. Linda put together a beautiful spread of snacks and drinks, so please feel free to help yourselves, and I'd love to hang out and chat some more if anybody else wants to. And thank you everybody for coming and making an effort to be here.
Thank you.
Thanks, Liz.